The darkness seethed like a living entity, a palpable presence that stirred and twisted in the depths of the abandoned asylum. It had lain dormant for decades, waiting for the catalyst that would set it free. And now, with the arrival of the unsuspecting explorer, Dr. Lily Wilder, the shadows began to coalesce, taking on a life of their own. As Lily ventured deeper into the decaying halls, the air grew thick with an almost tangible menace. Her flashlight beam danced across peeling walls, casting eerie silhouettes that seemed to move of their own accord. Every creaking step, every groaning floorboard, echoed through the deserted corridors like a death knell. She had come seeking answers to the asylum's dark past, but instead found herself entangled in a web of foreboding. Lily's footsteps slowed as she approached the door to Ward 3, the notorious hub of the asylum's most heinous experiments. The wooden sign, adorned with rusty hinges, hung crookedly, as if warning her to turn back. Beyond the door, a chill awaited, one that would seep into her very marrow. For in Ward 3, the boundaries between reality and madness blurred, and the darkness stirred, sensing its freedom drawing near. Lily's heart hesitated, but her curiosity propelled her forward, pushing aside the door's creaking resistance. The air within was heavier, more oppressive, as if the very atmosphere had been distilled into a noxious brew. The beams of her flashlight trembled, casting an unsteady glow on the walls, where the shadows seemed to writhe and twist in defiance of the light. She stepped further into the ward, her boots echoing off the walls as she navigated the narrow aisles between the rusting hospital beds. The stench of decay and rot clung to everything, an abattoir of dreams gone sour. Above her, the ceiling seemed to lower, as if the weight of the asylum's dark history was pressing down upon her. Lily's gaze wandered, drinking in the horror that lingered in every peeling plaster crack, every rusty hinge, every gouge in the walls. And then her light fell upon the first of the photographs, yellowed, faded, yet still radiating an aura of malevolence. The faces stared back, eyes black as coal, mouths twisted into grotesque, inhuman grins. A sudden, mournful sigh whispered through the ward, the sound of forgotten souls trapped in eternal torment. Lily's skin crawled as she realized she was not alone. The darkness, sensing her presence, was awakening, its power coursing through the very foundations of the asylum. Suddenly, the photographs on the walls began to rattle, their subjects' eyes flashing with a malignant glow. The air vibrated with an otherworldly energy, as if the very fabric of reality was about to tear apart. Lily's breath came in short, sharp gasps, her heart racing with a mix of fascination and terror. Behind her, the door to Ward 3 slammed shut, the sound echoing through the corridor like a death knell. The shadows converged, coalescing into twisted, humanoid forms that lurched towards her. The faces from the photographs seemed to leap from the walls, their grins stretching into macabre, inhuman smiles. Lily stumbled backward, her flashlight slipping from her grasp, its beam dancing wildly across the ceiling as it rolled away. The darkness seethed, a living, sentient entity that wrapped itself around her, suffocating her. The whispers of the forgotten souls grew louder, a cacophony of despair and madness that threatened to consume her. In the heart of the chaos, a figure began to take shape, its presence drawn from the very essence of the asylum's darkest moments. Its eyes, two black holes of malevolence, fixed upon Lily, drawing her into an abyss of eternal darkness. The figure's presence was a siren's call, beckoning her towards the abyss, promising an eternal reign of terror and despair. As the shadows closed in, Lily realized that she had disturbed a horror beyond human comprehension, a terror that would not rest until it had claimed her soul. The figure's presence expanded, its dark energy enveloping Lily, making her skin crawl with an unholy intimacy. The whispers grew louder, a chorus of damned souls screaming in her mind, as the figure's eyes burned with an otherworldly intensity. The air was heavy with the stench of decay and corruption, as if the very fabric of reality was rotting from within. Lily's vision began to blur, her senses overwhelmed by the onslaught of terrors. She stumbled, her legs trembling beneath her, as the figure reached out with an ethereal hand, its fingers closing around her wrist like a cold, dead vice. The whispers erupted into a deafening scream, a maelstrom of madness that threatened to consume her. The photograph faces on the walls began to twist, their grins stretching into grotesque, impossible shapes, as if the very essence of horror was being distilled into its purest form. The figure's grip tightened, pulling Lily towards the abyss, as the darkness around her deepened, becoming a palpable, living entity that seemed to pulse with a malevolent life of its own. The flashlight, abandoned on the floor, flickered erratically, casting an eerie, otherworldly glow over the ward. In the heart of the chaos, Lily saw her own reflection staring back at her, distorted, twisted, and corrupted, a reflection that was not her own, but a monstrous parody of her former self, born from the darkest recesses of her own psyche. The figure's eyes flared brighter, burning with an eldritch power that threatened to shatter the boundaries of sanity. Lily's scream was lost in the cacophony of terror, as she teetered on the brink of an eternal abyss, her soul on the precipice of being consumed by the very darkness that lurked within. The figure's grip tightened, pulling Lily closer to the abyss, as the darkness seemed to solidify into a tangible, palpable presence. The air was heavy with the stench of decay, and the whispers grew louder, a maddening chorus that threatened to shatter her mind. Lily's reflection, distorted and twisted, began to change, its features melting like wax, reforming into a countenance that was no longer hers. The face that stared back was a grotesque parody, a mockery of her former self, with eyes that burned with an otherworldly intensity. The figure's eyes flared brighter, and the whispers reached a fever pitch as the darkness surged forward, a living tidal wave of terror that threatened to engulf her. The photograph faces on the walls began to blur, their grins stretching into impossible, inhuman shapes, as the very fabric of reality seemed to unravel. In the heart of the chaos, Lily felt her own identity begin to disintegrate, her sense of self dissolving into the abyss. She was no longer Dr. Lily Wilder, but a mere puppet, controlled by the dark forces that lurked beyond the veil of sanity. The figure's grip tightened, pulling her closer to the edge of the abyss, as the darkness seemed to whisper a single, maddening phrase in her ear. "You will never escape." The words echoed through her mind, a cacophony of despair, as the shadows closed in, threatening to consume her forever. In that instant, Lily knew she was doomed, trapped in a living nightmare from which there was no escape. The darkness had become her reality, and she was but a mere plaything, a pawn in a game of cosmic horror, where the stakes were her very soul. The darkness seemed to solidify, taking on a life of its own, as the whispers grew louder, a deafening roar that threatened to shatter her mind. The photograph faces on the walls began to writhe, their features contorting into impossible shapes, as the air seemed to vibrate with an otherworldly energy. Lily's reflection, now a twisted mockery of her former self, began to whisper back, its voice a sibilant hiss that echoed through her mind. "You will never escape," it whispered, the words echoing through her brain like a mantra of despair. The figure's eyes flared brighter, burning with an eldritch power that seemed to pierce through the veil of reality. The darkness surged forward, a tidal wave of terror that threatened to engulf her. As the whispers grew louder, a cacophony of madness that echoed through the corridors of her mind. In that instant, Lily knew she was lost, trapped in a living nightmare from which there was no escape. The darkness had become her reality, and she was but a mere puppet, dancing on the strings of the abyss. And then, the lights flickered, and the darkness seemed to pause, as if holding its breath in anticipation. The whispers ceased, the photograph stilled, and the figure's eyes dimmed, as if the very fabric of reality was about to tear apart. In the silence, a single phrase echoed through Lily's mind, a phrase that seemed to come from the very heart of the abyss. "You will never be sane again." The words hung in the air, a promise of eternal damnation, as the darkness closed in, ready to claim her soul forever.